You can walk into a room and know something has changed before anyone says a word. A smile appears half a second too late. Someone answers with, "I'm fine," but their voice is flatter than usual. A friend who normally fills every silence suddenly reaches for their phone. Two people stop talking the moment you enter. Nothing dramatic has happened, at least not on the surface. But your attention has already collected a dozen small details, and your mind is trying to assemble them into a meaning. That ability can feel almost impossible to explain. Other people may tell you that you are reading too much into things, being too sensitive, or creating problems that are not there. Sometimes they are wrong. You really did notice a shift, but sometimes the shift is real while your explanation for it is not. And that is the part the few people talk about. Noticing a signal and knowing what the signal means are two different abilities. The first can be remarkably accurate. The second is always vulnerable to fear, memory, expectation, and whatever your body is feeling in that moment. So the real question is not, why do I notice so much? It is, how do I keep this depth of perception without letting every signal become a warning? Some people naturally pay close attention to subtle changes in their environment. They process tone, expression, timing, posture, and emotional atmosphere with unusual depth. Research on sensory processing sensitivity describes meaningful individual differences in how strongly people respond to and process environmental input. But sensitivity is not a diagnosis, and it does not mean that every sensitive person has the same history, the same nervous system, or the same level of social accuracy. For one person, noticing deeply may begin with temperament. They have always been the child who heard the tension underneath a polite conversation, or remembered the one strange sentence everyone else forgot. For another person, attention became sharper because their environment was unpredictable. They learned that a door closing differently, a parent becoming unusually quiet, or a small change in someone's mood could tell them what kind of evening was coming. Those two experiences can look similar from the outside. Both people scan. Both detect changes. Both may need longer to recover from stimulation, but their attention may be serving different purposes. One is drawn toward detail, the other may be searching for safety, and many people are a mixture of both. This is why it is dangerous to reduce every observant person to one label. Not every highly sensitive person is traumatized. Not every vigilant person is unusually empathic. Not every introvert is reading the room. And noticing more does not automatically mean understanding more. Still, there is a reason this trait can feel like a hidden advantage. Most social communication does not happen through words alone. Meaning also travels through facial expression, voice, pace, posture, distance, touch, and silence. When your attention is tuned to those channels, you may catch emotional information that others miss. You notice when enthusiasm looks forced. You hear when an apology is technically correct, but emotionally empty. You recognize that someone's anger may be covering embarrassment, or that their jokes have become a way to ask for reassurance without asking directly. The difficulty begins when your mind moves from observation to conclusion so quickly that the two feel identical. Imagine a coworker usually sends warm, detailed messages. Today their reply is only 3 words. Okay, sounds good. The signal is real. The reply is shorter. The story might be, they are annoyed with me. But other stories are also possible. They are rushing into a meeting. They are exhausted. They are concentrating. They believe the question has been answered. They are upset about something completely unrelated to you. A perceptive mind may correctly detect the change. An anxious mind may then choose the most threatening explanation and treat it as a fact. This can happen because uncertainty invites the mind to complete a pattern with past experience. If a short reply once came before rejection, distance, or conflict, a similar reply today can activate the old prediction before new evidence arrives. That does not make you irrational. It makes you human. but it does mean your first interpretation should be treated as a hypothesis, not a verdict. A useful way to understand this process is through 3 layers: signal, story, and certainty. The signal is what a camera or audio recorder could capture: the shorter reply, the change in volume, the crossed arms, the long pause. The story is the meaning your mind assigns to it. They are angry. They are lying. I disappointed them. This relationship is ending. Certainty is how strongly you believe that story. Many people who notice too much do not struggle at the signal level. They struggle because their certainty rises faster than the available evidence. Once you learn to separate those layers, your perception becomes more useful, not less. You do not have to dismiss what you noticed. You also do not have to obey the first explanation your nervous system produces. Consider a relationship in which your partner becomes quiet during dinner. If you ignore the shift completely, you may miss a real need for connection. But if you decide, without checking, that they have lost interest in you, you may become defensive, distant, or demanding. Then your reaction creates tension that seems to confirm your original fear. This is one of the cruelest loops of hyper-awareness. You detect ambiguity, predict rejection, protect yourself against the prediction, and accidentally change the interaction. Think about the last time one small change in someone's behavior sent your mind searching for an explanation. What was the signal, and what story did you immediately attach to it? Share the clearest example in the comments, especially if the truth later turned out to be different from your first interpretation. And if this is helping you understand your own patterns more clearly, give the video a like so Layered Psychology can continue exploring the hidden layers behind the way we think and feel. And this pattern does not only appear in close relationships, it can quietly shape the way you behave at work too. A manager gives less feedback than usual. You detect the difference. Your story says your performance is declining. You begin over-explaining, apologizing, or working late to prove your value. Your communication becomes tense. The manager senses the tension and becomes more formal. Now the room really does feel different, but not necessarily for the reason you first imagined. In families, the pattern can be even stronger. If you grew up around moods that were never explained, you may have learned to become an emotional weather system. You track everyone's tone, predict who might explode, soften your own needs, and try to prevent discomfort before it becomes visible. Over time, this can create a painful belief. If another person is upset, you must have missed something, caused something, or failed to fix something. That belief is not empathy. Empathy lets you recognize another person's experience. Emotional over-responsibility makes you feel accountable for managing it. This difference matters because highly observant people often become excellent at detecting distress, but poor at deciding what belongs to them. They feel tension in the room and immediately volunteer their attention, energy, and peace of mind. They start reviewing conversations, adjusting their behavior, and searching for the precise sentence that will restore harmony. But awareness is not ownership. You can notice that someone is disappointed without making their disappointment your identity. You can sense that a friend is distant without chasing them for reassurance. You can recognize tension between two people without becoming the translator, mediator, or emotional container for both of them. The cost of failing to make that distinction is not just overthinking, it is exhaustion. A mind that continuously monitors facial expressions, tone, timing, and possible consequences has very little true rest. Even quiet environments can feel busy because the activity has moved inside. The conversation ends, but the analysis continues. You replay the pause. You reconsider the wording. You remember a look from 3 hours earlier. You imagine what you should have said. Then you analyze why you are still analyzing. This is why some deeply perceptive people need a surprising amount of recovery after ordinary social contact. The interaction may have lasted 20 minutes, but their attention performed hours of invisible work. And when the body is tired, interpretation usually becomes less reliable. Fatigue narrows perspective. Stress can make threatening explanations feel more convincing. A lack of sleep can make emotional signals harder to read accurately. The moment you feel most desperate to solve the interaction may be the moment you are least equipped to interpret it fairly. So how do you keep the gift without living inside the burden? Start by slowing the jump from signal to story. When you feel that familiar internal alarm, describe only what you can verify. Instead of, "She is pulling away," say, "She has initiated fewer conversations this week." Instead of, "He thinks I am incompetent," say, "He corrected 2 details in my presentation and spoke briefly afterward." Instead of, "Everyone felt uncomfortable when I spoke," say, "There was a pause and 1 person looked away." This language may seem clinical at first, but it gives your mind room to breathe. Facts are often smaller than fears. Once you name the signal precisely, the story becomes visible as a story. Next, generate at least 3 explanations. Your first explanation deserves consideration, but it should not receive a monopoly. Maybe your friend is distant because they are upset with you. Maybe they are overwhelmed. Maybe they assume you need space. Maybe the relationship has changed. Maybe nothing meaningful has changed, and your attention is magnifying normal variation. The purpose is not to force a positive interpretation. It is to restore uncertainty where certainty has arrived too early. Then ask what evidence would actually distinguish one explanation from another. This is where perceptive people often get trapped. They collect more of the same ambiguous material. They analyze another pause, another message, another facial expression. But 10 ambiguous signals do not always equal 1 clear answer. One more filter can help. Classify what you noticed as urgent, repeated, or isolated. An urgent signal points to immediate safety or a clear boundary violation and deserves a prompt response. A repeated signal appears across time and context. It may justify a direct conversation or a change in how much access someone has to you. An isolated signal is 1 unusual look, 1 delayed message, or 1 awkward pause. It may matter, but it has not yet become a pattern. Observant people often suffer because they respond to isolated signals with the intensity reserved for repeated ones. Giving each type the right weight prevents a single ambiguous moment from taking control of an entire relationship. Sometimes the next useful step is not more observation. It is a respectful question. "I noticed you got quiet after we talked about that. Did something land badly, or are you just tired? You have seemed more distant this week. Is there something between us that we should talk about? You were brief after the presentation. Was there a concern about my work, or were you moving to the next meeting?" A good checking question does 3 things. It names the observable change, leaves room for more than one explanation, and does not accuse the other person of hiding a truth you have already decided is real. Of course, people do not always answer honestly. Sometimes your perception is right, and the other person is not ready to say so. Calibration does not mean becoming naive. It means refusing to call uncertainty certainty simply because uncertainty is uncomfortable. The 4th step is to check your state before trusting your conclusion. Ask yourself, am I hungry, sleep-deprived, ashamed, recently rejected, overstimulated, or already afraid of losing this person? Your condition does not erase the signal. It can, however, shape the story. When your body expects danger, neutral ambiguity may feel loaded. When you are calm, the same details may remain important without feeling catastrophic. This is one reason delaying interpretation can be powerful. You're not abandoning the issue. You are allowing your nervous system to stop acting as both witness and judge. Write down what happened. Step away from the conversation. Eat, sleep, walk, shower, or sit somewhere with fewer inputs. Return to the evidence when your internal volume is lower. Then decide what kind of response the situation actually requires. Some signals require a conversation, some require a boundary, some require more time, some require no action at all. If a person repeatedly says everything is fine while punishing you through silence, inconsistency, or withdrawal, your task is not to become better at decoding them. Your task may be to respond to the pattern you can already observe. You do not need a confession to acknowledge that a relationship feels unstable. You do not need to prove someone's hidden motive before deciding that their behavior is painful. A boundary can be based on impact and repetition, not psychic certainty. That distinction is freeing. It means you do not have to win an argument about what another person secretly feels. You can say, I do not know exactly why this keeps happening, but I know what it does to me, and I know what I will participate in. This is where perception becomes wisdom. Perception gathers details. Wisdom decides which details deserve energy. Without that second ability, being observant can turn life into an endless investigation. Every room becomes a puzzle. Every pause becomes evidence. Every change becomes a message addressed to you. But not every expression is yours to decode. Not every silence contains a hidden accusation. Not every shift requires your intervention. Sometimes people are simply having an internal experience that belongs to them. Selective attention is not denial. It is a boundary. You can notice something and choose not to pursue it. You can register tension without absorbing it. You can let another adult speak when they are ready instead of extracting meaning from their body language. You can decide that a pattern needs more evidence before it receives more of your life. This also applies to the way you monitor yourself. Many observant people turn the same attention inward. They watch their own face while speaking. They hear their voice from the outside. They edit each sentence before it leaves their mouth. Afterward, they replay the interaction as if reviewing security footage. They call this self-awareness, but sometimes it becomes self-surveillance. Healthy self-awareness helps you adjust and grow. Self-surveillance makes spontaneity feel dangerous. It turns every social moment into a performance review. You are no longer fully in the conversation because part of you is standing outside it, measuring how you appear. The solution is not to become less thoughtful. It is to return attention to participation. Instead of asking, how am I coming across? Ask, what am I genuinely trying to communicate? Instead of, did they approve of me? Ask, was I honest, respectful, and clear? Instead of reviewing every detail, choose one useful lesson and let the rest of the interaction be imperfect. You are allowed to be misread. You are allowed to pause awkwardly. You are allowed to realize later that you chose the wrong word. Human connection does not require flawless social data. In fact, connection often becomes possible only when you stop trying to control every interpretation. There is another truth that observant people rarely hear. Your sensitivity does not have to be available at full power all the time. You can design periods in which you are not responsible for reading anyone. You can spend time in spaces that do not demand performance. You can reduce noise, notifications, emotionally intense content, and conversations that keep your system activated long after they end. Recovery is not a reward for reaching complete exhaustion. It is maintenance for a mind that processes deeply. And if constant scanning is interfering with sleep, relationships, work, or your ability to feel safe, that level of distress deserves professional support. The goal is not to remove your perceptiveness. It is to help your attention become flexible again, to move toward important signals when needed and away from them when the moment has passed. Because the deepest problem is not that you notice too much. It is that you may have learned every detail must be understood immediately. Every mood must be managed, and every change must be about something you need to prevent. It does not. A shorter message is a shorter message before it is rejection. A pause is a pause before it is judgment. A changed expression is a changed expression before it becomes proof. You can honor the signal without surrendering to the story. You can trust your perception enough to investigate it and trust yourself enough to survive being wrong. You can notice tension without becoming tension. You can sense pain without carrying it. You can see a pattern without letting it decide the ending before the next moment has even arrived. That is the real strength of a perceptive person, not the ability to read every room perfectly, but the ability to remain grounded while the room is still unclear. And once you learn that, your sensitivity stops being a command you must obey. It becomes an instrument you know how to use. In the next video, we can go one layer deeper. How self-awareness quietly turns into self-surveillance, and why people who understand themselves deeply can still feel unable to act naturally. If you know someone who constantly reads between the lines and carries more emotional weight than others realize, share this video with them. And subscribe to Layered Psychology so you do not miss the next hidden pattern we uncover. Or tell me in the comments which psychological layer you want us to decode next.